we once again, Commissioner Omont, refused to give up on the Fairgrounds camp expansion, even though the Fair Board told you they didn't want it. The Fair Board wrote a letter and said they didn't want the money for the grant. You guys are still pushing forward? That's a yes or a no or a I don't know. What is it? You're still pushing forward, even though the Fair Board told you they didn't want to do it. Are you the Fair Board?
I'm pretty sure I'm a commissioner.
Okay, but the Fair Board says they don't want the grant, and you guys continue with it anyways? Well, I mean, I don't know if do you need to call a friend, maybe Dan McDonald? Maybe he can tell us why we're still continuing forward.
Don't cross the envelope.
I'm just saying, it doesn't make sense. You tell me what makes sense, and I'll stop on this.
Actually,
you know,
I'm prepared to respond.
Respond to
Well,
it. By all means.
listen, I want to wait till Spencer sits down so his time is done, and then I'll talk about, because I'm not.
Oh no, I would prefer to stand here because when
And then
you
I'm not
spew a
gonna
lie, I want to be able to respond.
Well, it's not a question answer.
And that's why, yeah, it's not about cents, Mr. Hutchings, it's about dollars. And in regards to the Fair Board, well, one, the Fair Board signed an MOU. The Fair Board also agreed to it, and there was a number of mischaracterizations in regards to the Fair Board's response. For example, in January of this year, when I attended the Fair Board meeting.
Prior Fair Board. Not the board that exists now, not the board that wrote the letter.
When I attended, you know what? It was lovely talking to you. I look forward to doing this. One of the things I'm noticing as I'm reading about the Idaho Republican Party platform is about civility and comity. And in the interest of providing other citizens the opportunity to speak, I will wait for my time. Thank you for this opportunity.
Civility ends when lying starts. There's no
Careful.
point to civility anymore.
Careful.
When the lying starts, okay? So when you start spewing lies to the public.
And we let you speak every week regardless.
Oh, you think I'm lying? Oh, well, by all means, point out my lies. Please, tell me everything I've lied about to you. Because all I've done is try and get you to tell the public the truth.
Okay,
and you refuse.
I'm going to cut you off at this point because we're not going to have an argument while it's public comment time.
Well, you know, this whole thing
You're
about,
done.
you know, the whole
Thank
thing
you,
about us
Victor.
having a discussion and us
Thank
trying
you.
to.
Debbie Trennan, you're lit up. You're
we're
next.
trying
Go
to,
ahead.
well,
Spence,
that'll be
you may sit
entertaining.
down.
You know, we're trying to get information out to the public,
All
here,
right.
Steve. And if
I'll
Steve,
call recess for 10 minutes. Thank you.
awesome.
So anybody need a bathroom break or a cup of coffee would be a good time to get it.
Go make a call to Dan. See what he's supposed to do next. Oh, give me a break. You told me I tried to, I had the Fair Board lady kill herself on Facebook. Don't tell me about childish. I never even met the woman and you said I tried to get her to kill herself? You're insane. You're nuts. I'm not listening to anything you say.
Oh my God, you're such a child.
I'm the child.
You are,
Oh, okay. I'm the child. Yeah.
every week.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Because I don't do what you want to hear. Yes. That makes me the child.
Stevie, where are you getting your dunk tank? I need to know.
Your what?
The dunk tank.
I don't know. The rental place by the mall has a dunk tank.
Oh,
Because we were in it at one
I've
time.
seen it on ABC rentals. Oh, okay.
What are
So
you,
you can come drown me
we're
in
going
with
back to that
Marshall.
fundraiser?
We got a place now.
She thinks she's going to float the whole county on dunk your commissioner.
I think it'd be fun. Come on.
I think you'd earn a lot of money.
Who did you get set up to be the person sitting there?
Well, I want all elected officials.
Yeah, that's her idea.
That would probably
It would
draw
be,
pretty good fun.
that's,
That would be fun to see who was able to
Raise
draw the
the most
most money.
Yeah. Then,
That particular person.
and then one of them little teenage baseball pitchers show up and everybody be paying for him to throw.
it would balance everything out.
We'd all be washed at the end of the day.
How's it going?
It's like Washington, got an R in it.
There you go.
Get a little tired of being light.
We should make.
Yeah, it would be very interesting to see.
Washington?
I don't think there's.
Which one of the people are
Maybe Heidi's over from us.
able to, you know, bring the
Yeah.
largest amount of
Spencer,
Yes, ma'am.
income.
Yeah.
have you considered attending one of the fair board meetings?
No, I haven't.
You know, that might be a.
I have Brett's jacket, I think, by the way. I don't know. I was like, whose kid's jacket is this? And Brian was like, it might be Brett's. So I forgot to bring it, but
It's not exactly cold out.
yes.
Why would you put that in writing if that's not what you meant? Usually when I put things in writing, it's because I mean it.
And I'm not sure.
I think, you know, to be involved, since you, yeah, right. Since you have such a passion for it, it seems like,
No, I don't have such a passion for Fairgrounds. I have such a passion for being lied to by my government.
again, if you attended the meetings, then you might have a little bit more direct information on what's going
Will
on.
enlighten me. What am I missing?
Again, I think attending the meetings in person gives you personal information, that's all I'm offering you.
Well, you must think there's some particular facet I'm just missing out on. What is it?
I'm not here to educate you on the meetings.
Oh, of course not. Of
I'm
course
just
not.
offering,
Of course not. No, you just want to waste more of my time.
they're not.
Can do Sunday.
Who, Logan?
And it's
He's
possible.
fine. He's perfectly safe. First time at a match, yeah, he did fine.
Cool. Have a good time?
He had a wonderful time. He'll be back.
Yeah, we did. Gary Johnson. That's why they say it sucks.
Yes, it does. Yes, it
Did you end up getting rid of a lot of asparagus?
That's the first time I've ever done it. Yeah, I know.
I tried and begged people to take boxes, but
does.
no.
One of those things you enjoy, we just think about.
Yeah, that. Well, actually, a lot of it was it will stink up my house. It's hot outside. That's what we were doing all weekend, but after so many times, we pickled and dried and made powder to make the super green mix. But
Well, I don't know if you, I don't know.
after 2 days of doing it, you're just like, who else wants this crap? And they still have like 300 pounds left. Yeah. I have no idea.
It really starts to smell when it.
Yeah. I couldn't pedal
You're gonna let
anymore.
the secret out, Luke? You're gonna tell everybody what the real reason is? How I've been wrong this whole time? Waiting for it. I'm waiting to be wrong. Mike knows I've been wrong all this time. But I don't think so. I think you guys are up to something. Oh, yeah, I am wrong all the time. Yeah. No, these guys are up to something. No other reason for what they're doing. And I don't know what you guys are up to, but it just stinks to high heaven. You should know better, Steve.
Those are strong words from someone who hasn't attended a meeting. That's why I'm inviting you to the meeting. There's one next Monday.
There's several of them at the Republican committee that like to mouth off about things that they have no clue on because they've never attended or actually bothered to find out the information. And when they did, they didn't like the answer, so they ignore it and they continue on.
I'm not trying
Yeah,
to.
that's why
punch a
you've been
person.
censured by them and I haven't, right?
Yeah.
That's why
I've
the
been
committee-
censored?
Yeah, by the Republican Central Committee, and so is Luke.
That's like a badge of honor, considering the new Central Committee and the way they're running.
The only person who thinks being censured by Republicans is a badge of honor is somebody who has communist ideals, or somebody who's got something to hide.
Yeah,
somebody who's a
okay.
rhino. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's you.
we'll go with
That's how
that
you're
one.
acting. You don't notice it.
That's
because
good.
you've changed.
You're done. Shut
You're
up.
not the person who we elected, Steve. You have changed. And I don't know if it's because you're getting bribed or because you're getting threatened or what, but something's going on with you.
And you are lit up. Spencer, you will hush or leave this room.
Oh, yes, Father.
Okay, son. Debbie, can you hear us? Unmute yours. There you go.
Well, I could hear you, but it sounds like it got a little heated there, and then all of a sudden the volume went away, and as entertaining as it was, I'm actually kind of glad I didn't hear it. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. You know, I read an article in the Bee a couple weeks ago referencing the Bonner County Central Committee, admonishing Luke and Steve. And Steve, the badge of honor comment, kudos. And it's rich considering that on a weekly basis, I hear several Central Committee members show up at these meetings and misbehave. I guess it's the old do as I say, not as I do. And trust me, my knee-jerk reaction is to emulate the abhorrent behavior of these folks, but I'll attempt to maintain my dignity. Luke, Spencer presses you on a weekly basis about your obsession, as he refers to it, with this piece of property, and he's not alone. You've answered him. I know the answer. The people in the room knows the answer. Spencer knows the answer. And I'm confused because to anyone with the common sense that God gave a goose, they would know that it's not Luke who's obsessed with the property, it's Wheeler. Wheeler is obsessed with this parcel. His incessant attempts to put the kibosh on this RV campground is perplexing. But it's not his first attempt to monopolize this piece of land. Last year, it was an ice rink that would have generated large revenue for the county and zero expense to the taxpayers. But no, it seems Wheeler and his followers would rather sabotage any creative and lucrative revenue generating idea or project brought forth and let the land just lay fallow in the hopes of building what I've heard would be $100 million justice facility. The sheriff's talking points are there's more people in the county, there's more crime, so we need a new justice center. I didn't know that a new $100 million facility could stop crime, but seems to me overburdening the taxpaying citizens of Bonner County could actually have the opposite effect, but that's a topic for another day. So Luke and Steve, I have an idea. You should put this $100 million albatross on a ballot as an advisory vote. I think it's time for the citizens of this county to really know how Wheeler and these folks want to spend their hard-earned precious money. My guess is the result of that ballot initiative would be a resounding no. And I would love to see Spencer standing out on the Long Bridge with a sign that says, vote yes for $100 million. Vote yes. In the meantime, please continue to pursue the campground, both the plan and the grant, because we need the money. And I thank you both for your service. You have handled yourselves with dignity and integrity, and I know for a fact I couldn't do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Anybody else online?
I want to pause just a real quick, Claire. When they speak, the timer isn't getting started so that we can make sure everybody gets a chance. So he.
Okay, I'll let technology know I don't run that portion of it.
Oh, okay.
Send them a message.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Dmitry Borisov for the record. I've been attending these meetings consistently since the beginning of the year. And it's been said multiple times already, you guys heard it. I've attended other meetings and it definitely looks like Commissioner Ormond, Commissioner Bradshaw, when Commissioner Williams brings things up, brings an emotion or something, you guys stay quiet. You don't even allow debate maybe once or twice in 5 months. Luke's second motion to have some kind of a discussion on the subject that Commissioner Williams brought up. So it does look disingenuous to us, to people, and it does look like you guys don't want to be part of the conversation or explain us your position. So I would encourage you guys, at least for the sake of discussion, letting us know what you think particular issue. Please second the motions that she brings up. You can always deny it, you can always vote against it, but please let us know what you think. So it will, in our minds, as in my mind, make it clearer to understand where you guys are coming from. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Christine Noella, unmute yourself. Christine, you still with us?
I sure am.
No,
Can you hear
go
me?
ahead. Can.
Hi, this is Christine Logue, and I just wanted to call, speak in regarding Debbie's comments. And everyone really knew that the ice rink was actually a bad idea because they had made, or were already in progress of an ice rink that was a mile away in Ponderay. And I'm still with Spence, I don't know why. I've been watching these meetings to find out what the whole predicament behind that RV park is. And I'd like some answers. And I'll wait for Luke's response to that as soon as he's, as soon as the public comment or whatever time frame he was waiting for. I'm patient. And then we, as the people, had wanted to see the RV put on an advisory, on the ballot as an advisory question as well. So that was just completely dismissed. So if we're going to talk about putting a jailhouse, question on an advisory ballot, the same justice should have been done to persons about the RV. So that was just kind of my knee-jerk reaction to Debbie's comments. I appreciate you guys having your open comment session. I think that's a great idea. And I think it gets some wheels turning. And I appreciate when you guys do get together and work together. It's all really nice. I know it's tough, but please continue to work together and let's get some answers. I'm still over here wondering. I watch each week going, I still don't have that answer. So if somebody could, Luke, at the end, if he has the answer, that is real simple for some of us simple-minded people, I'd appreciate it. That's all I have to say. Thanks, everyone.
All right, Christine. All right, I'm going to go ahead and address that. And so people may like the answer, they may not like the answer, but the answer is what it is. 2019, the campground was brought up, was agreed to with the Fair Board to go forward. And the reason for it is because of the inflation and the cost of running the different parts of the county. The budget became a major issue of how we was going to make it work. So we went up on planning department fees, building permit fees, so that those were user-based fees instead of the rest of the county picking up the tab for other people's stuff.
You can have a few better impact if you really wanted to for the big time.
Christine, press mute.
Is it there?
Yeah, I think you need to mute because we can hear you talking.
Yeah, okay, well, I do appreciate that. I would like to see
Christine,
impact
he's going to
fees
give
on
you an
the
answer.
board.
Christine, Bradshaw's trying to give you an answer. Thank you.
So anyway, as the budget became tighter and tighter, and it is even tighter now, this year is probably going to be one of the most challenging years. The most that the county can raise taxes is 3%. It's nice if we don't have to raise 3%. The reason for the campground is because it makes the fairgrounds more solvent and self-supporting, which uses less tax dollars, that frees up tax dollars for the rest of the budget to help cover some of the inflation. As it is, it's going to be super, super tough. And Sheriff Wheeler will tell you, bonuses and pay raises were a very hard thing to achieve last year just to keep our employees up to scale. And so with the budget versus inflation the way it is, making the county still function has become a challenge all in itself. And any department that we can make that is user fee based or able to generate revenue takes burden off of the taxpayers. I know that's hard for some people in this room to grasp, but when they get their tax bill, they like to complain about that too, but they want to block anything that might actually help that. But that is the reason for it, and the sole reason for it. There's no agenda. There's no plot against the sheriff. The sheriff's budget has grown bigger than any other department in the county. We have always seen that he gets what he needs. However, we have to work to get that done. So all the BS that y'all want to throw at us is all BS, and you're more than free to speak your mind, as long as you don't make it an attack. So there's your answer.
I want to clarify what I believe the actual question is. I don't think I've heard the community question having an RV campground. The question is, why are we wanting it on that piece of land versus on the existing Fair Board?
Because it's
land?
the only feasible piece of ground over there to put it on.
Let me finish, because I am thankful that you gave a response, but I want to make sure we're answering the question that I hear from the community. It isn't, should the fairgrounds become more independent? We don't bankroll them. I think it's ribbons that we give them money for. The question is, if the fairground and the existing fairground voted unanimously here, why are we wanting as a board to tell them where to place it instead of allowing them to place it where they're saying they want it on existing fairground land? And so that specific question, and I'll say Spencer or anybody else, tell me if I'm wrong, hasn't been answered. Why do we keep saying on this land versus move forward with the RV campground per the plan of the Fair Board? That's what hasn't been answered. I don't think anyone's disagreeing with trying to generate as much money or not wanting to increase fees to the community. It's why are we as a board stuck on the location? Am I accurate? They can't hear a no.
On the nose.
Okay, on the nose. All right. So do we have an answer to that question?
I have answers and I've given them. I'm happy to give them, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, that was agreed on in 2019.
2020.
Yeah.
2021, 2022.
And again this year.
And again this year, of which there are recordings, but recordings, facts, documents, financial, fiscal responsibility does not get in the way of a good narrative for some. It is very simple. It is about fiscal responsibility.
But that doesn't answer the question. And I think one argument, if we're going to have this discussion, which I think is good, to make statements isn't the same as answering the question. So if you guys, between the two of you, know the exact answer based on what you both just stated, for those of us who haven't heard it, can you just restate why that particular piece of land? Because fiscal responsibility concerns have been addressed even from, everybody keeps saying this is the sheriff's land. It is not the sheriff's land.
No, very few people say that.
It is the land that belongs to the county that has been identified as an expansion opportunity that includes the courts who have a need. It includes more than just the sheriff's facility. So it's not sheriff's anything. It's a piece of land that allows for expansion. So since the both of you are citing years of documentation, I actually have not heard the answer, and I would welcome hearing the exact answer as to why the campground has to go on this particular piece of land. And it should be easy since you guys have stated you've heard it over and over and over again.
Because it's the only place over there where you can put 34 spots, which is what the grant is for. And if you were to put it someplace else on the existing fairgrounds, then you wouldn't have places to park. It's the only feasible, logical place for it.
Wouldn't you be able to still park?
And so we're going to go on to Doug Patterson because we're not going to use up the public's time.
But this is what the public asked for too, though.
Excuse me, Commissioner Williams, I'm chairing this meeting. Thank you. Doug Patterson, you're up.
That's not exactly kind
No,
because.
it's exactly right. I'm
No.
chairing this meeting. You will be silent while Mr. Patterson's
Well,
turn is
actually,
talking.
I'm going to
Like that.
require the same respect, and if you want to have a recess, but I didn't say anything or speak in an unkind way to you.
No,
And a
you just won't
member,
follow the rules of the meeting. You do it on
Commissioner,
purpose so that you
you-
can hijack the meeting, and I'm not going to allow it.
well, I'm not
It's
hijacking the
Doug
meeting.
Patterson's
You
turn,
chose
Commissioner Williams.
Commissioner
We don't
Bradshaw.
interrupt you when it's your turn to speak, and it's not your turn to speak.
So I was
The chair is not
speaking.
recognizing you at
I'm
this
not
moment.
asking you to
Okay,
recognize
fine.
me at all, but if
We
you
will
want to
recess
again-
until 10 o'clock. Thank you, Commissioner Williams. Thank this lady right here.
Steve, you're just getting worse.
participate. But some of it has to do with the layout, and I think partly also why there is a desire to pull it more onto the existing fairground land, not so far away from it, because it's the age discrepancy of the kids that come. And because you usually come with a parent to help manage your kid and your animal, so.
It is 10 o'clock and we are out of recess, and we will entertain a motion for the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move to adopt the order of agenda as presented.
I second the motion.
Roll call vote.
Commissioner Ahmed?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Bradshaw?
Okay, District 2 Commissioner Report.
All right, so June 6th to 8th, commissioners will be out of office. So I believe that the business meeting that falls on that Tuesday has been canceled. So don't show up, please, for that, unless you want to talk to somebody other than a commissioner. On June 13th, I talked to the community about whether or not we wanted to use the public discussion time to allow some people to come in and give us discussions. And June 13th, Fish and Game will be here. They'll present to us an update and take some questions. They're going to start the discussion as we discuss so that they can leave sooner instead of having to sit through our meeting. June 15th will be the Old Town follow-up, where we're going to just go over all the things that they had issues and concerns on and all of the ways in which Bonner County responded. And I will say the department that made the most impact on that group was Road and Bridge. They will be thankful until the cows come home down there for all the work that your group did, so thank you. I put out a kind of a survey of the election saying these are the results, and then I gave some statistics about Spirit Valley and Spirit Valley only. That's the valley or the precinct that I'm the precinct committeeman for. I've received a significant number of people asking me, well, what are the statistics for the other precincts? So my information is going to be, please reach out to your precinct committeeman. You can go onto the Bonner County Republican Central Committee website, click on who we are, look for your precinct, and contact that person. And the reason I'm saying contact that person is to have that familiarity with those persons that are representing you as a precinct. You can also get that information from Rosedale, but it might be more beneficial. I'm not going to write a blog for the other precincts, and if you guys are wanting them to give you a summary of how your areas did, that would really be a good discussion for you to have with your precinct committeemen. Hammond rezone, I think I get a lot of emails regarding that. I am reading every single person's email regarding that issue. I cannot give you a response back to it. I have asked planning and zoning to make sure that I get those because I want to make sure that I address that when that hearing comes. So if you are wondering whether I've received it, I am receiving it, I am reviewing it, I am just not responding. If you are still wanting to send in emails regarding that topic, please make sure that you copy planning. Some of the emails are coming through without copying planning, and so I'm forwarding them to planning. We want to make sure every public comment is received, and that's the way to make sure it gets received. And so I am just forwarding that on. So today you will have seen on the agenda of things that we're going to do today is later discuss the assessor candidates. So at Central Committee, the precinct committeemen put forth 3 names to the Board of County Commissioners to identify who they want to move forward as the assessor. If you're not aware, our assessor, Grant Dorman, is going to step down from his position, and the date will be June 2nd. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the discussion on the assessors is open to the public. So if you want to participate, please come, ask your questions, help the commissioners know who you feel is the most qualified of the candidates that are put forth. The way in which the 3 names come is the party that the individual ran on gets to select 3 names, and that's what has occurred here. So if you have any questions for me on what I reported out, I will be also Clark Fork, June 21st. Some people have had an interest of what I've been working on with Clark Fork. I am big on helping the community centers, elder population, and so we're working to help them identify ways to maintain solvency without needing the county to provide assistance, but also to help their community kind of have the recognition that they need for all the work their community center is doing. They feed their community. They provide a lot of services to their community. So we're trying to make sure that we give them support. Some people have expressed a desire to come out and volunteer. On Wednesdays and Fridays are the days that they serve their community, and they're always welcoming of volunteers. And for everybody that volunteered on the fundraiser last Saturday, they say thank you. They got a lot of donations to support their community from within their community and from without their community. So any questions regarding my report? All right, so that's it for me.
Okay, District 3. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last week, our meeting was cut short so that we could attend a IAC presentation, and that, coupled with the information of 4% growth, approximately 6-ish, depending on perspective, 10-ish, but high inflation, will lead to further parts of my report. But we are budgetarily limited to 3% growth. Our population in Bonner County has grown by 4%. So we have more people using every one of our services, from law enforcement to roads, parks and recreation, to the registrar's office, and all of our employees are trying to make bills like everybody else. I went to the store this weekend and I bought 5 bags of groceries, no meat, no booze, and I spent a couple $100. And I could pretty much carry them out in one cart. There was nothing fancy, and that was at Walmart, because sometimes I'm a fancy shopper, but I also shop at other stores to share the wealth. Inflation is real, and these budgetary concerns are something that we have to deal with. We have more people demanding services upon our stuff. Now, one of the things that I started working on when I took office on January 9th was decorum, because I was concerned. And I would like to bring to some people's attention, because I do read from the Idaho Republican Party platform, as well as Robert's Rules of Orders, that there have been many motions seconded, but after the second, third, fourth, and fifth time, they have been discussed. And according to the rules, which if you have attended a Bonner County Central Committee meeting, you will notice that it is quite formal, which I respect and appreciate. One of the roles of the presiding officer at this is to keep order. One person is chosen to preside over the meeting. This person enforces the rules and designates who is to speak at any given time. The presiding officer may be elected specifically for the meeting and then is called the chairman, and we have that process. In addition, how you get to speak at a meeting, by the way, I'm reading from Robert's Rules of Order, which we have not formally adopted, but in order to make a motion or to speak in debate, you use the same procedure. You stand up immediately after this previous speaker is finished and call out Madam President or Mr. Chairman, or whatever the chair's title may be. So this week I'm working on submitting the grant extension for the IDPR grant, and later today we're going to hear about some other Idaho Parks and Recreation grants, which are fee-based. And what these are done to improve the lives of Idaho citizens. And part of that is in relation to Title 31, Chapter 8, Powers and Duties of the Board of County Commissioners. And one of those is acquisition of property for park or recreational purposes. And this is 31-806 for those that are interested out in internet land. And one of the things that needs to be done so that we can comply with our statutory responsibilities is that we may hold, maintain, improve, and operate the same for the use and purpose of a public park or public recreation. And it may dedicate property already owned by the county to a like purpose. Now I could keep going, but we have a number of pieces. But I would like to respond to some of the information brought forth by various people. And I find that pictures are pretty useful. So here is just a rendering, and no, there has not been compaction studies done, because in the interest of financial responsibility, you don't do compaction studies on a rendering. What this demonstrates is the potential to have it's a rendering, it's a weird shape. We could make it smaller. A potential 50,000 square foot footprint for a courthouse. Now this is one of the only ones I'm gonna do. While we were at the IAC convention, I spoke with some Nez Perce commissioners. They're in the process of building a new courthouse. 86,000 square feet to a tune of $55 million. Now they were able to utilize a funding mechanism that is no longer available. Our current courthouse is 45,000 square feet, which would be the size of that first floor. So if we were to expand that to double, and we think about 4% growth per year, it is not an unreasonable amount to consider that a 175 or 200,000 square foot courthouse, which would house different departments across a county that's growing at 4% a year, would cost $100+ million. And that is the reason why I maintain my commitment to this project. I call it math. Math says that the less that I ask for my neighbors to pay for from their pockets provides them the opportunity to utilize their hard-earned resources themselves. And I'd like to read. First off, we'll start in 2001. The previous commissioners told me they want to become self-supporting, and I need to know how they want me to achieve that, or if they feel differently. Sharon Bryant, Fairgrounds managers. In 2014, because they recognized as they built a park for recreation purposes with the city of Sandpoint, our county seat, the parcel in question was dedicated to the Bonner County Commissioner's intention is that this parcel be made available exclusively for parking use by the Bonner County Fair Board. Oh, let's talk about parking. This is the information that was based on engineering. I'm not an engineer, I'm just an ex-teacher, ex-soldier, so I do real simple math. I'll make it real quick. We had engineers conduct a parking study, and to make it super fast, we don't have enough parking. Where you put a campground to try to protect the campers and the RV sites matters. Now, I have been told that my experience at the campground where I was parking in the 80s with dry camping is not relevant, but I beg to differ because I'm aware that people are still camping in those same spots. And as a 4-H kid, you camp near your animal because your animal is what you take care of. It's your project. You've invested a lot of time and pride in it. Now, October 19th, 2020, update on Campground Road and construction project, of which it was included. Thursday, January 6th, 2022, grant application for expansion of the RV campgrounds at the fairgrounds. By the way, this is a Bonner County Fair and Rodeo Association workshop. January 17th, 2022, this is the Bonner County Fair and Rodeo Association to the Bonner County Fair Board. In 2020, the Bonner County Fairgrounds applied for and was awarded the IDPR RV grant, funding for the Fairgrounds Campground Road repair. This was intended to be phase 1 of a 4-phase campground repair and expansion project. Following a discussion between myself and the IDPR grant specialist, it was determined that it would be ideal to split the grant into 2 standalone projects, but we continue to work on. Phase 1, construct additional campsites and road. Phase 2, pave newly constructed campsites and road. Phase 3, install bathroom and shower building, which Mr. Martin answers part of your questions, but I did pull that out and I will get you those answers. Monday, February 14th, 2022, Bonner County Fairgrounds update. The application has been submitted to IDPR. We will wait to hear what they say in early summer. July 26, 2022. This is Darcy Smith talking to include Bill Wilson and the commissioners, giving an update about what happens if the campground were to be torn down. These conversations have been asked. I have the memorandum from the fair. By the way, Bonner County subsidizes staff at the fair. We pay for the manager, we pay for the, and the two other maintenance folks. That comes out of taxpayer funds. But here, IDAPA 26.01.31, Section 4, reimbursement of project costs. The grantee must initially pay all project costs and then seek reimbursement through the department. If funds are expended but the project is withdrawn or otherwise not completed in accordance with the grant agreement, we will not reimburse those costs. This is from Tiffany Brunson, who's the same lady referenced by Darcy Smith. At this point, we have concerns about the timeline and costs of this proposed project. This location has been discussed by the last two fair managers. The engineer who is working on this project has worked from phase 1 through the current phase. It's about budget. The fair board, past and present, has clearly been involved with this project from start to now, and there are recordings and a stack of documents to prove this. 3 weeks ago, the clerk of this office invited the fair board to schedule a meeting so that we could have a joint meeting. The clerk provided multiple different dates for this meeting to occur. We still await a response. We are open to this. The fair board agreed to $25,000. There are recordings of the fair board talking about this campground grant in January of 2023. I am concerned about the budget, both of this project and of this county. I do not have any intention of raising taxes if I can figure out a way to support historical uses for this county and for the fairgrounds. Let me give you a couple of projects that need to be done that I don't want to have the taxpayers pay for. They need to fix the parking lot. If you drive into that parking lot, you might get to go spend some time with Elite Tire and Suspension or Les Schwab. They need to fix the road. They need to fix the wiring. They need to fix the roofs. They need to fix the floors. They need to fix pretty much quite a bit. And we've got to have revenue. Over the weekend, I had the misfortune of having a bathroom say that I need resources. I got to spend part of yesterday cleaning up a sewage spill. And you know what? The plumber who's coming to my house is not going to do it out of the goodness of his heart. He's going to do it based upon capitalism. And I'm going to pay somebody because you get what you pay for. If you get the cheapest plumber like myself to do something, you might get to spend a lot more lately. So I remain focused on being as conservative as possible with our funds while continuing to provide our statutory responsibilities as provided by state law. That is my focus. It remains my focus. And that's why we are doing what we're doing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, consent agenda.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
I second the motion.
All right, roll call vote.
Commissioner Ahmed?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Bradshaw?
Yes, ma'am. So, real quick for Doug Patterson, because he'll ask. Purchases over $5,000. You got $9,668.81 for repairs to groomer, differential, and track assembly. And weeds, annual chemical procurement, $24,106.85. And we will go on to joint county ordinance presentation. And Pete, if you will take this microphone and place it over in front of him, and that'll save him the trouble of having to work his way over.
Yes, you may.
I don't need much.
got
Well, I can give you that.
that works.
That'll work. Thanks, Pete.
Just need a place to set things. Why, good morning. My name is John Ellsbury. I am the Latah County Surveyor. Wasn't elected, I was appointed. So I'm here to talk to you today about one of the boundaries of Bonner County. And it's a pretty obscure little corner. I guarantee that none of you have ever worried one bit about what I'm going to talk about. But this boundary that is in question, and believe me, it is in question. Right now, it is what you would call an indeterminate boundary. I'm a land surveyor, and I've actually had to mark this boundary line about 4 times in my career already. And it gives me I got to look over my shoulder constantly about it, that somebody doesn't sue me over my judgment. But I'm a professional surveyor, and that's what I get paid to do, is make those decisions. So the boundary line in question is the common boundary of Bonner, Benoit, Clearwater, Latah, Kootenai, and Shoshone counties. None of you guys have ever even worried or thought about it, but it is a straight line that is defined by the mouth of the Clearwater River, which is down by Orfino. So it's a line due north from the mouth of the Clearwater River. Who would have dreamt up such a description for the southeast corner of Bonner County? It was somebody in Abraham Lincoln's administration. This line was created in 1863. What were they worried about in 1863? The Battle of Gettysburg. The largest loss of life in American history in a single military engagement. At both sides, So they may not have put enough thought into this boundary, but they created the Idaho Territory in 1863, and they divided that territory into a few counties, one of which was Shoshone. I think the other in question was Nez Perce, but I could be wrong on that one. And what did they use? They used the best, most precise location they had. Remember Lewis and Clark? 1805, they come cruising through, and one of their jobs was to map it. And they went through a lot of trouble to gather latitude, longitude observations of the major landmarks. What landmarks? Mouths of rivers. So in 1863, that was the most precise location they had. Well, okay, let's go due north from there. How will they ever put that on the ground? Well, a century or so later, or maybe half a century or so later, in the late 1860s, the western boundary of Idaho, North Idaho, is such a line. And it was defined as a line due north from the mouth of the Clearwater River, which is in Lewiston. And believe me, they worked on it for many months with very skilled laborers at the time. And it must have cost hundreds of thousands of dollars in I don't know when the hell they did it, long time ago. So believe me, what you have right now is a boundary line that has 2 big problems. One, where's the mouth of the North Fork of the Clearwater River? I'm supposed to have a tech
Not the
guy
same
here.
place it was 100 years ago.
Could you give me my first visual? You supposedly can hear me. So at any rate, it's got 2 big problems. Where's the mouth of the North Fork? Guess we won't have any visuals.
They're working on it.
All right. there's about 4 pretty legitimate places that you could call the mouth of the North Fork. Which one are we supposed to use? There's nobody to tell you. So this visual is the line. That bright green line is what I had. That's the 6-county boundary. Okay. Next one, please. Next visual, please. There's 4 places for the mouth of, oh, this is your county. So what you're seeing right now is the Township 54 North, Range 1 East. And you have 4 miles or so, 3.5 miles. Of that is your county boundary marked with the red line. Next one, please. And this is 53 North, 1 East. And that's another 5 miles of it. And the red line is what I'm proposing, and the gray line is the indeterminate approximate location. So this is kind of a good place to, you're going to be given, if these guys agree with my presentation, you're going to give some, you're going to get some. Could I see the previous location, please? Okay,
Can we clarify for what's happening here is what he is looking at is a boundary line adjustment for Bonner County. And part of it has to do with some of the counties shifting from is it the Boise Meridian kind of reference to just saying, we're going to shift it so it makes sense. And Bonner County would lose a number of federal acreage, but
That's
not
correct.
personal.
Yeah,
correct?
there's no private lands
Okay.
in the mix at all.
U.S.
remember
Forestry Service,
Zero,
both sides.
absolutely zero. It's all Forest Service.
I think you talked to us last time, and I thought we were going to do a workshop for the community to be able to ask questions about the topic, and then because you're wanting the board to make a decision about
I'd
moving
really
forward.
love to walk out of here today with a decision.
So this has been placed on this agenda as an action, discussion, decision regarding this establishment, just so that everybody knows. He's asking for the board to make a decision today on whether or not to shift the line.
And they've studied it.
Yeah.
They've had this in front of them for months.
It would put definite markers as to where the line is, which historically has not been done. And it was a little more challenging in the counties south of us because he had to kind of work with property owners.
So that's
But
not
Bonner County
entirely
was the
accurate what
easy
you
one.
just said. We're not going to put a single piece of steel in the ground. What we're going to do is try to accept existing pieces of steel in the ground. And this map shows that there's about 5 or 6 of them there. And they were put in the ground in the 1930s. And they're still there, I think. As a surveyor, I have really good luck recovering 1930 vintage monuments. Next slide again, please. You'll see no X's on that one. The only monuments of record for that line that I'm proposing are the original government land office survey of 1905. And they were either wooden posts or stones. They're still recoverable. I'm not saying they're not there. I'm just saying they're 120 plus years old. Okay. The public land survey system is something that you all have some attachment to. I presume that almost everybody in this room is a landowner. And the land that you own is described based on the public land survey system. If you have a lot and block description of a lot in city limits of Sandpoint, it still goes back to the public land survey system. And that's what established the only corners that have ever put in the ground in this remote corner of Bonner County. Next slide, please. So this line was first approximated in 1886. Shoshone counties and Kootenai County were squabbling about, gold had just been discovered in like Cataldo, I think. Where the hell, which county is it in? Nobody knew, because it was a long ways north of the mouth of the North Fork of the river. Nobody was going to start in Osaka and figure that out. Somebody had a bright idea. The Boise Meridian had arrived in the Silver Valley in 1885. Why don't we just measure off of that? Seemed like a pretty good idea. They hired a couple surveyors. They did this. They determined that at Osaka, the mouth of the North Fork was 3 miles and 1,230 feet west of the mouth. So they come up to the Silver Valley and measured back 3 miles, 1,230 feet, and they put 2 monuments in the ground that have been lost. Nobody knows where they were, but that was the first attempt to put the boundary line on the ground. That was the first attempt. And so it set a precedent, and when a land surveyor like myself goes out there to determine a boundary, that was the only precedent we had to work with, and lo and behold, that's where I put it. 3 miles, or actually used 3 sections. A section is a mile square. Everybody on that page? So we used 3 sections and 1,230 feet to match the deeds that we were surveying, because they called for 90 feet east of a 16th section line. Okay? It's all surveyor stuff, and I won't bore you with it anymore. So the second problem with what you have now is there are absolutely 0 monuments in the ground that define the actual boundary line as per Idaho code. Idaho code says due north from the mouth of the North Fork of the Clearwater River. It's over 100 miles long, and there's not one boundary line marker on it. And as you have just listened for the previous hour, land is expensive, and people squabble about where it is and who owns what and who's in charge of what. And the biggest reason for the board to endorse what I am trying to sell them is that sooner or later there'll be a matter of jurisdiction. Whose jurisdiction is this murder trial responsible? When I moved to Idaho in 1978, shortly thereafter, there was a murder in Idaho County. And that murder trial, the Langfords, you probably read about it many times, it's cost Idaho County a couple of $1 million. And these guys have been in prison ever since. And can you imagine, think of how many people are carrying firearms with them today in campgrounds, somewhere out there in the woods, and somebody shoots somebody. I don't know what the details might be, but it's pretty close to this line. Can you imagine the field day that the attorneys would have saying, no, it's not your jurisdiction, it's your jurisdiction? Well, had a couple of $1 million. You know, $1 million doesn't go near as far as it used to, but still, it's a big number. And these guys are responsible for the budget. That's the only thing that they really do, is they get to decide if a given amount of money is appropriate to solve a given problem. That's all that they do. They got the checkbook and they sign the checks. So let me move on to, try the next slide. This is it's unfortunate it's so small, but this is the gist of the problem. The upper image, you'll see a few things that are highlighted in green, which are possible locations for the mouth of the North Fork. And there's 4 of them there. But there's a 1,790-foot discrepancy between the furthest one to the west and what we actually use as the solution when we survey it. 1,790 feet. And the strongest point to use for the boundary is the one that's furthest to the west. the one that we use is 1,790 feet away. Could you now go down to the next image? Okay, this is a collage of a couple of different USGS quad maps. And you can see sections on them. You guys have all held one of these in your hand at one time. So the Boise Meridian is on the far left side. And lo and behold, there's an offset in it. Explain that one to me. Why would there be an offset in a meridian? A meridian is a line that's supposedly a line of longitude. It's a whole nother story. We won't go there. But look at those sections. Count them up, 1, 2, 3, and you come to, you see the mouth of the North Fork, you think. You see the little tip of land that is between the two rivers. Well, go 1,230 feet further to the east, and that's where we're actually calling the county line when we survey it. Now, if you were a professional surveyor, putting a line on the ground that's supposedly due north of the mouth of the North Fork of the Clearwater River, and you get out your quad sheet and you see that I'm going 1,230 feet further east, I mean, it's ludicrous. There's no practical way for me to do that well.
It's only a quarter mile off.
No, it's a little bit more than a quarter mile, actually. More like 3/8. And so what I'm here to advocate is that we abandon this statutory definition. As, although it worked well in 1863, it's 2023. And there are far better ways to do business. And one of the jobs of county governments is to be consistent from one side to the other. They need to address taxation in a consistent manner. Okay, there's no private lands to be taxed along this boundary line that I'm proposing for
Mr.
Bonner
Ellsbury?
County. Yes, ma'am.
I want to condense a little bit because since this is a business meeting, but I want to ask you some questions on we've heard this at the Region 1 for our district meeting. Have the other counties, you have counties listed here where the shift will actually cause a loss of private property, correct?
That is correct.
So have those
No,
counties?
well, let me address private property being industrial private property.
But it's not.
Private
federal.
landowner, private property, we have adopted the
Non-federal
16th line, which almost eliminates all transfers between private landowners in counties.
And so so have the other counties adopted to shift this change, make this change?
Benoit County has.
And then if my memory serves me, was it Latah County that has the most, that they have to give up the most?
Yes,
Have they agreed?
they will. They agreed to it.
They
I can
preliminary
speak for them, believe me. They didn't endorse it this time. I've done this presentation on a smaller proposal in 2021, and they endorsed it. And the line that they endorsed is identical to the one that I'm trying to sell now. The reason that they didn't endorse it when I asked them to sign it is they're the most liberal county of North Idaho. And they didn't want to color this proposal as a liberal proposal because it's not liberal, it's a conservative proposal. I just happen to work for them, and I have no skin in this game. I have no ownership in any of the lands that are going to be transferred. The largest transferee is the Forest Service. 45% of the boundary is Forest Service land. The next one is
Timber companies, wasn't it?
Potlatch, I think.
Yeah.
Yes, Potlatch is the next, followed by Department of Lands, State of Idaho. 8% of the boundary is bound by private individuals similar to yourselves. And the rest of it, BLM has 4%. The rest of it is corporate owners, and they have 1% or 2%. But the Forest Service is 41%, potlatch is 24%, state of Idaho 11. Did I answer your questions?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a little off my, let me. So there are multiple places along this boundary where there's no man's land. The deed in one county is described as 90 feet east of the 16th line, and the deed in the adjoining county is the 16th line. Therefore, a 90-foot gap between the two. Will this fix that? No. That's a legal issue. It has to be resolved by a judge. And, but the first thing the judge would ask is, where's the county line? This will tell them where the county line is. So it's a very conservative approach. And is anybody going to lose property? Absolutely not. This is not a conveyance of any way, shape, or form, but it will transfer some corporate lands and a whole lot of Forest Service land from one county to another. Will it affect your budget? That's what these guys are really concerned about. How much am I getting into their pockets? As I stated before, no private lands are involved in either in Bonner County. None will be affected. You will lose about 160 acres of Forest Service land. About, do I know for certain? No, because I don't know how it is that you guys added it up now. Believe me, it's not very consistent. I've looked at how the lands along the boundary are described, and it is a mixed bag. So about a quarter of a section, 160 acres. How much money are we talking about? Well, in Lake Talk County, well, step back. There's payments in lieu of taxes that the federal government shells out periodically out of the goodness of their hearts. So where did they get started? Well, back in the day when the Forest Service cut a lot of timber, they forked over 25% of the proceeds to the counties that the timber was harvested in. And
Yeah,
that's the basis of payments in lieu of taxes. Forest Service stopped cutting timber about 1980. They still kind of dribble it out a little bit, but it's nothing like it used to be. And it hurt all the up and down Idaho, Oregon, California, the little rural places. The public school system had come to rely very heavily on that 25% of the timber revenues. And so conservative Western senators and representatives dreamed up payments in lieu of taxes. And they came up with a formula that pays about $2 and I'll say 50 cents. That's not precise, but it's a little round number. It's easier to use. About $2.50 an acre. And so by losing some paper acres, you're going to lose about $400 a budget a year. If Congress doesn't decide to balance the federal budget on your back and say, we've paid these taxes, paid payments in lieu of taxes long enough, and that's where we're going to cut. They just did a back room negotiation all weekend long and made a decision, and that might have been something on the board. You might not get another federal dollar for the duration. I don't know, you don't know. But that's the only thing that potential that I'm getting in your pocket for is about 160 acres. So the big question is, why should they do this? Why should they pony up $400 a year out of a $20 million annual budget, approximately, give or take? That's about 0.02% of their budget. 0.02% is what I'm asking for. Why should they do this? Well, because the other 5 counties have got a lot more skin in the game. And how is this, who can change this? Well, the counties can't. You guys can't sit here and tell anybody, we're not going to use that as a boundary anymore. We're going to use this instead. It's not within your purview. Sorry. The only entity that can change this is an act of the Idaho legislature. And they're not going to do it until all 6 counties agree to it. And that's why you should do it, because the other 5 have a lot more at stake, a lot more to gain by having it finalized and having a definite boundary that's marked by monuments. This boundary that I'm trying to change is 17 townships long. 6 miles is a township on one side. 17 of the suckers. Can we put it straight? No, we can't make a straight line out of 17 townships. About every 2 or 4 townships, there's an adjustment for the curvature of the earth. So there's lots of east-west segments if you define a line using the public land survey system. That's just there's gonna be 9 jogs in it no matter what. Okay, and so in the rest of these counties, what's their number 1 concern? Taxes. You bet. You know, they say they don't, concerned. We're not going to raise them, but believe me, they're concerned. They don't want to give up 1 red cent, period. So I had to do some sort of a balancing act between finding the most number of steel monuments existing in the ground so nobody has to survey it versus counties not losing an inordinate amount of acreage. So I had to zig and zag back and forth, but I want to keep it as straight as possible because it's got to be mapped. It's got to be on people's logos, you know, as a straight line. Trust me, at the scale we're talking, it's still pretty straight. Nobody will ever see the difference. But those gives and takes are, you know, they're there. I can't make them go away. And just to tell you how big they are, I have a spreadsheet on this, and I will share it. Well, I've already shared it with you. I don't know if you've downloaded it or not.
I have seen it.
But
Luke, is this your agenda item?
No, this is a joint county ordinance presentation. All of ours.
so
Did you place this on the agenda, Luke?
No, Commissioner Williams, I believe this was placed on the agenda by our clerk.
Did you?
I did not. No, I didn't. But I'm in support of it after I hear.
Did you request the clerk to place the item on the agenda for which she typed it out and printed it and posted it and noticed it?
Commissioner Williams, it was not I.
Thank you. Because he has a lot of information on this, and this is a business meeting. And so what he's asking is something of the board. And we 3 have actually heard this presentation at the Idaho Association of Counties, and he presented it here. In the interest of time, should we move forward with a vote of what to do on this item? Because he has a significant amount of information, and it's really being presented to the people in the audience, really not to the elected officials, because we've received this and reviewed this issue. So I'm asking if it'd be reasonable to do a call to question for the vote on this issue.
I'd be good with that.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to ask our assessor/surveyor, Grant Dorman, his position on this, if I may. Yes. Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, could our surveyor assessor give his thoughts on this?
I wished you would.
Thank you.
Grant Dorman, Bonner County Assessor, for the record. I heard this presentation several months ago at the ISA meeting. From a surveyor perspective and from an assessor perspective, this is a no-brainer. This is a good proposal. I don't see any downside to this. My first initial thought on the whole thing was good fences make good neighbors. Knowing where our boundaries are as neighbors is never a bad thing. Right now, the boundary between us and Shoshone County is, we might have a handshake agreement, but it's not as good as if we have a definitive location. When we became counties, we did not have the public land survey system where we had section lines to ascribe to. We now do. So there's no reason not to tie our boundaries to the public land survey system, where we know exactly where they are. Yes, there's a component of it that has not yet been remonumented since 1909, but it has been surveyed. So these are surveyed lines. So to me, it's to not do it would be, in my opinion, derelict of our responsibilities, because we're leaving an ambiguity sitting on the record, and moving forward just tightens things up, and it'd be a good thing. So I would wholeheartedly recommend it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm prepared to make a motion.
We should.
Mr. Chairman, I move that Bonner County participates in the adoption of the 6-county boundary adjustment ordinance, and that we send it to the recorder's office to be assigned a number.
I second the motion.
Roll call vote?
Commissioner Ahmed?
Yes.
I would like to pause. Are we going to allow the community to ask questions after?
Any public comment? Wayne Martin?
Wayne Martin for the record. A question. If it's adopted by our county and it is failed by any or all the other 5 counties, we're stuck with it, or what happens?
Nothing happens.
So it's basically like it just ends up being a wash and going back to what it was.
And this is really a request that all the counties would have to say they were on board with, and then they're submitting it to the state to shift it. It's not, yeah.
Then
You're
it would become a definitive line, as it should be.
However, they're voting on an ordinance. And if none of the other counties endorse it, they'll still be stuck with this ordinance on their books. But will it affect any business? No, it will not. Won't move a boundary. They don't have the authority to.
Until 20 years from now, when the others finally decide to.
Yeah, and it would cost our budget somewhere between $250 and $350. Not much.
Sherry is online with her hand up.
Sherry, you got something?
Yeah, can you hear me?
We can.
Oh, excellent. You say this $250 to $350, which is not much, which actually is a lot to me. Is that taxes?
The PILT money that we get every year from Forestry Service, we would lose, 150 acres plus or minus some. And that would affect, that PILT money would go to the other county for that 160 acres. So it's pretty insignificant amount.
Well, I don't see it as insignificant, but I suppose somebody who plays with a lot of money might, so. Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
We wouldn't have a lot of say-so in, so.
Huh?
It's
Say that
something
again?
we wouldn't have a whole lot of say-so in once it's adopted, so,
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be adopted, that's what I'm saying.
yeah. All right, anybody else? Okay, roll call vote once again.
Well, I have some questions I'd like to discuss. It is whether or not our legal reviewed it to make sure that it was, the ordinance that's being recommended was okay. And if not, that we have that happen and then say based on approval. I'm not asking you to review all of it, just if you've given your opinion already.
Sure. So this is Bill Wilson for the record. Yes, we did. My office has reviewed the proposed ordinance. It was sent to us a couple of months ago, and Lewis and I looked at it, and we agree that it's good in its current form, and we support it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Yes, sir.
One of the things that may not have hit your thought waves is that before the ordinance can be enacted, it has to be published. And that is normally accomplished with a summary of the ordinance, of which I've shared with your clerk.
Right.
And
we have it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Summation of what I have already proposed.
Thank you.
Roll call vote.
Commissioner Ahmed?
Yes, again.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Bradshaw?
Yes, ma'am. So, our illustrious clerk, you are up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the hard work you've put into it and are putting into it. It sounds like a lot of fun.
Well, it's a heck of a mind game, I'll tell you that. It's a huge mental challenge to try to come up with a fair and non-debatable location for it in a very defensible manner that everybody does to deal with it. But finally find it satisfactory. And thank you so much. I won't take any more.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike Rosedale.
Morning, Commissioners. Morning, everybody. I do want to say after our canvass on Thursday for the election, we do have the results, the detailed results and everything posted on the website. And I got a good question from Trish earlier over the weekend about our percentage of voters. If it's a high percentage or not. We have roughly 52,000 people in the county, something like that, and we have 31,500-ish registered voters. So after you subtract out kids, we actually have a pretty high percentage of registered voters. Okay, before you, I have claims batch number 17 in the amount of $676,265.39 and demand batch number 17 in the amount of $263,131.77, totaling $939,397.16 for your approval.
I move to approve payment of the FY23 claims and demands in batch 17 totaling $939,397.16.
I second the motion.
Okay, Doug Patterson, you got a question?
Yes, I do. My usual question to Mike, in what the major expenses in the particularly in the demands are.
Sure, we have the big ones are about $27,000 for a new Chevy Equinox, $36,000 for a fleet vehicle, $21,000 for postage, $135,000 for pharmacy and medical, $10,000 for fuel. Those are the major ones.
Thank you. Honest, I said thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, roll call vote.
Commissioner Arnold?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Bradshaw?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Next, I have EMS claims batch number 17 in the amount of $29,736.49 for your approval.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve payment of the fiscal year 23 EMS claims in batch number 17 totaling $29,736.46.
I second the motion.
Public comment? Roll call vote.
Commissioner Arnold?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Bradshaw?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Ron Stoltz with Justice Services.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
3 items for your consideration this morning. For the record, Ron Stoltz, Director of Bonner County Justice Services. First item I have is just a memorandum of agreement with the Idaho Department of Juvenile Corrections to support the community-based alternative services. The acronym for that is CBAS, as well as the substance use disorder services, which is the acronym for that is the SUDS. Basically what these are funds that the Department of Juvenile Corrections pass down to counties. The CBAS funds are for community-based services that we may not otherwise be able to afford for our juvenile offenders, such as counseling, therapy, different assessments that aren't covered under other things. There's an application process that we can apply for those funds to make sure we're providing those services as best we can. And then the SUDS funding is funds that the state passes down for kids to get what's called a GAIN assessment, which is a substance abuse disorder assessment to determine the most appropriate avenue to treat those, their disorder, whether that be through outpatient services and at what level, a 1.0, which is a lower level outpatient, all the way up to intensive outpatient, all the way up into residential treatment. So this is just approving the agreement between us and the state that we will accept those funds as and use them appropriately.
Thank you. I move to approve the above referenced MOA, which provides state funding for the 2023-2024 fiscal year for approved treatment programs for juvenile offenders and has been previously approved by legal.
I second the motion.
Public comment? Roll call vote.
Commissioner Ahmed?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Bradshaw?
Yes, ma'am. Number 2.
Number 2 is an MOU between Bonner County Justice Services and Bonner General Health. This is to maintain our compliance with the Prison Rape Elimination Act, basically stating that if we have a youth that is physically, or not physically, but sexually abused while in our custody, that Bonner General Health will do the appropriate forensic medical exams so that they may be prosecuted or dealt with accordingly as to whatever their finding is. But it just keeps us primarily in compliance with one of the standard Prison Rape Elimination Act.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the MOU between Justice Services and Bonner General Health. This MOU sets forth the conditions under which Bonner General Health will provide medical care or assistance to inmates who are victims of sexual abuse while incarcerated in the Bonner County Juvenile Detention Center in compliance with the federal mandates of the Prison Rape Elimination Act and has been previously approved by legal.
Second the motion.
Public comment? Okay, roll call vote.
Commissioner Ahmed?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Bradshaw?
Yes, ma'am.
And number 3 is pretty much identical to number 2, except for this is an MOU between Bonner County Justice Services and the Victim Witness Coordinators, also known as Lillybrook, basically to keep us in compliance with PREA standards. They will do the forensic interviews as needed and provide victim services as needed for anyone that's a victim of sexual abuse while incarcerated in one of our facilities or in our juvenile facility.
I move to approve the MOU between Justice Services and Victims Witness Coordinator. The MOU sets forth the conditions under which the Victim Witness Coordinator will provide advocates to juvenile detention residents who are victims of sexual abuse while incarcerated for emotional support in compliance with the federal mandates of the Prison Rape Elimination Act, PREA, and has been previously approved by legal.
Mr. Chairman, I second the motion.
All right, public comment? Roll call vote.
Commissioner Ahmed?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Bradshaw?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Road and Bridge
You're welcome.
with
Nice to see
Mr.
you.
Top.
Sat down so long, my legs are falling asleep. Morning, Commissioners. Jason Top, Director of Road and Bridge for the record. For you today, we have the award for the Bonner County asphalt projects. On May 4th, Bonner County opened bids for the Bonner County asphalt projects for 2023, which will place asphalt on East Dufert and short portions of South Signal Road, Bear Paw Road, and Peterson Road up the hills. That's from the highway intersections to the top of the hills on both Peterson and Bear Paw. We received 3 bids. I have reviewed the bids and found them to be responsible and regular. The base bid amounts are as follows. Pro Asphalt Paving Incorporated, $1,358,315. Wood Crushing Hauling Incorporated, $1,420,988. Interstate Concrete and Asphalt Incorporated was $1,507,815.45. Based on these bids, Road and Bridge is recommending awarding the contract to Poe Asphalt Paving Incorporated to best serve Bonner County. Funds will come from 002-8490 plant asphalt mix, which has a remaining balance of $1,489,388.
Mr. Chairman, I move to award the Bonner County Asphalt Projects 2023 project to Poe Asphalt Paving for an amount of $1,358,315 and allow the board to sign the contract.
I second the motion.
Public comment? All right, roll call vote.
Commissioner Ahmed?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Bradshaw?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Jason. All right, EMS. Chief Lindsay's here. Howdy.
Howdy. Chief Lindsay for the record for Bonner County EMS. Before you commissioners, I've got the Idaho Cooperative Mobilization Agreement between Bonner County EMS and the Idaho Department of Lands. The description on this is an agreement between Bonner County EMS and the Idaho Department of Lands for BCMS to provide medical standby services on scenes of wildland fires throughout the state of Idaho. BCMS will be compensated for these services.
Based on the information before us, I move to approve the Idaho Cooperative Mobilization Agreement between BCEMS and Idaho Department of Lands.
Mr. Chairman, I second the motion.
Public comment? Okay, roll call vote.
Commissioner Ahmed?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Bradshaw?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Pete?
Good morning, everyone. Pete Hughes, Bonner County Recreation for the record. I have 2 items for consideration this morning. The first is from my Parks and Rec department regarding the IDPR grant acceptance. In January of 2023, Bonner County applied for a grant through the Idaho Department of Parks and Recreation Recreational Vehicle Program. It is my pleasure to inform the board that we were awarded the grant for improvements at the Garfield Bay Park in the amount of $30,600. Improvements include new picnic tables, benches, and fencing surrounding the park. Bonner County is committed to a match both in-kind and cash contributions in the amount of $7,100. About half of that is cash and the other half is in labor. By signing the attached RB 24-109-1 grant agreement forms, Bonner County accepts the commitments associated with the use of these funds.
Mr. Chairman, based on the information before us, I move that Bonner County accept and sign the RV 24-1-09-1 Garfield Bay grant agreement with Idaho Department of Parks and Recreation.
I second the motion.
Public comment?
Yeah, I want to say something. Good job, Pete. I live right out there. These picnic tables out there are pretty tough to sit on right now. They've been out there a long, long time. So this is very welcome for the people who live out there.
Good project.
Thank you. Roll call vote?
Commissioner Ahmed?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Bradshaw?
Yes, ma'am. Number 2.
All right, thank you. Second item is from my Waterways Department, and this is regarding the Lakeview breakwater repair, final reimbursement, and closeout. Attached is a request to the Idaho Department of Parks and Recreation for final reimbursement of Waterways Improvement Fund grant, WW 231091. All repairs have been completed in accordance with the grant agreement. The total project amount is $122,700. IDPR contribution is $116,200, and Bonner County's contribution is $6,500. By signing this request, Bonner County will be reimbursed in the amount of $116,200, and the grant listed above will be closed.
Based on the information before us, I move that the county sign the request for final reimbursement and closeout of grant ending 1091 in the amount of $116,200.
Public comment?
You have to second the motion first.
Mr. Chairman, I would second the motion.
Okay, public comment? None. All right. Roll call vote.
Commissioner Ahmed?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Bradshaw?
Yes, ma'am. Thanks, Pete. Okay. So this is for the reappointment of the Bonner County Solid Waste Advisory Committee. Solid Waste Advisory Committee has 1 member requesting reappointment to the Bonner County Solid Waste Advisory Committee. Term will begin 5/30/2023 and ending 5/30/2026. Advertisement was placed in Bonner County Daily Bee requesting applications for persons interested in serving on the Solid Waste Advisory Committee. Only one letter of interest was received, and they were a current member seeking reappointment. So I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, based on the information before us, I move to approve Resolution 2023-43 to reappoint Cheryl Reese to the Solid Waste Advisory Committee.
I second the motion.
Public comment? All right. Roll call vote.
Commissioner Ahmed?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Bradshaw?
Yes. All right. Appointment of 2 Waterways Advisory Committee members. After a special meeting to consider applicants, the Waterways Advisory Committee recommended the appointment of 2 new members. Board of County Commissioners wishes to appoint Tom Trulock and Jim Brosson to complete 2-year terms on the Waterways Advisory Board ending May 29th, 2025. And I would entertain a motion.
Based on the information before us, I move to approve Resolution 2344 appointing Tom Trulock and Jim Brosson to fill the vacant positions on the Waterways Advisory Committee and complete a 2-year term expiring May 29th, 2025.
Mr. Chairman, I second the motion.
All right. Public comment? All right, roll call vote.
Commissioner Ahmed?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Bradshaw?
Yes. All right, Commissioner Ahmed.
Mr. Chairman, the Bonner County Fairgrounds Campground Expansion Project requires a competitive bidding process for the work to be completed. Bids must be received by the Board of County Commissioners by June 21st, 2023 at 2 p.m., at which time the bids received will be publicly opened and read.
Okay.
So the request is for an advertisement?
The request is for an ad, to put the advertisement out so that we can follow the legal procedures necessary for bids. Put out bids. And I'm prepared to make a motion.
Okay, make a motion.
Mr. Chairman, based on the information before us, I move to approve the advertisement of bids for the Bonner County Fairgrounds Campground Expansion Project.
I'll second the motion to advance it to discussion.
Okay.
So is there a cost associated with this advertisement?
Yes.
Do you know what's the cost?
It's whatever it costs for the advertisement. I don't know the normal cost for the.
You know about what that normally is?
Depending on how many words, anywhere from 50 to 150 maybe.
So, between 50 and 150 bucks.
So part of this is related to an extension that the board has not requested an extension for, nor have we received response from Idaho regarding whether or not they will extend it. Why does it make sense for us to continue to put out money for a project based on a grant that we may not receive an extension to, especially given the events of the current Fair Board voting unanimously not to move forward with the request that's attached to this grant? We have already voted 2-1 to move forward with a Sewell re-engineering up to the cost of $25,000. And then we're going to advertise to receive bids for a project that has a higher probability of not moving forward given the actions over the week, which is regardless of what individuals want on this particular project. If you recall, before we discussed and Commissioner Bradshaw confirmed that there was questions on whether or not they wanted to give us the extension before the Fair Board sent this letter. I think it's highly unlikely that we get the extension, but I think it's not fiscally responsible to throw money before we get confirmation that they're going to give an extension for this grant. And then I do think that it's reasonable that the board tell the community the plan regarding how we're spending money in anticipation of a grant. How do we force the fairground to move forward when they're saying they don't want to? There's a lot of questions here, but we seem to keep writing a check for this project without confirmation. So can you clear up those issues for me?
Absolutely. Mr. Chairman, I am aware that there are members of this community that would like to raise taxes on the rest of us. This commissioner is not. I understand that many of them are that they don't have the same understanding of budgetary restraint that I do. I did email Tiffany Brunson last week informing her of the intention and the timeline. I did not include that because at times I get weary of violating open meeting laws. So no, I did not include everybody in that communication.
Did she confirm that you're going to get an extension for the grant to move forward?
No, there is, may I continue?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, in my communication with Ms. Brunson, I detailed to her the process, the steps that we have undertaken. The steps that we undertook is in accordance with the grant. And what it says is, and I will read from that correspondence. At this point, we have concerns about the timeline and cost of the proposed project. As a reminder to all of the people as to why this location was chosen is not only the historical use of that area for campground, for camping, but also budget. So the email from Tiffany Brunson that I hold in my hand says, we have concerns about the timeline and cost of the proposed project. There were some exceedingly unfortunate tragedies that took place in this process. And part of that was the death of the previous fair manager, Darcy Smith. And yes, that did throw some pretty significant obstacles moving forward. But this parcel in question and this grant project has been on the radar of the Bonner County Fair since 2001. This, as I could go through the documents again, has been discussed in open meeting, in public workshops with the Bonner County Fair Board. This board did provide a request for the Bonner County Fair Board. Go ahead, Mr. Ellsbury. Oh, no. Safe travels.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
This board did reach out to the Bonner County Fairground to schedule a joint meeting. And the Bonner County Fair Board has yet to respond. Speaking for myself, I'm not interested in forcing people to participate, but I do expect people to keep their word. And when people sign a contract, and I have documents demonstrating that there has been participation in this process, from start to finish, I take people at their word. And in regards to the development and the location of this grant and this park, not only is it a statutory opportunity for us, it's a Republican opportunity, which is clearly listed in the Idaho GOP party platform, which I adhere to. So I am methodically complying with the instructions with the intent of providing revenue so that the fairgrounds can improve the facilities, such as improving the wastewater by potentially paving the parking lot, fixing the roof, fixing the roads. That has been the purpose. There has been no change from 2019. The Fair Board has been involved. There have been some recent developments that I will be kind and say that there is a mischaracterization of fact, which is demonstrated by the evidence. But I also recognize that evidence does not get in the way of a good controversy at times. I remain committed to this project because it is good for the taxpayer. It is good for the fairgrounds. It's also really good for 4-H kids, of which I was once one, but I understand that there are some people who don't appreciate some of the experiences that many of us have had growing up in Bonner County at the Bonner County Fairgrounds.
Thank you for the monologue, but
You're
my
welcome.
questions were not answered at all. So I'm going to do one at a time.
Well, I can answer that for you. The reason for it is for time.
My first question is, there is no guarantee that we receive the grant extension. How is it fiscally responsible to request the ad to spend taxpayer money when you have not even submitted the request for the extension, let alone there's enough objective information that supports that it's not a probability that you will receive the extension. So if you could please answer why we should spend money today hoping to receive the extension.
Because of the time. In the event we don't get the grant, then it doesn't matter, it all dies. But in the event that we do, and we do get the extension, everything is in place to move forward. And it's called preparation and vision. And I recommend everybody try to get a little, but.
Well, I am actually exercising the preparation and vision of unnecessarily spending money on a project that on the face of it looks as if it has failed before the Fair Board. And it's not reasonable for us to say, we send an email to the Fair Board and 7 independent members are going to give an answer to this board in short order. That's disrespecting volunteers. However, there's enough information to support that you are not likely to receive the extension. But it is probable that we will receive a bill from Sewell Engineering. And if you move forward with this, we will receive a bill from whoever it is that we notice this from. And I'll add, I do think it matters that third parties who want to interact with the county and perform business, it's not building good business relationships to have them do the work to submit bids to us, for us to keep going back and forth and pulling, yes, we will, no, we won't. That's not good business. So why not push forward in this manner? Because when the $25,000 potential bill comes from Sewell, and then you get this bill from the B, and we don't get the grant extension, are the commissioners who keep pushing this going to pay that bill instead of forcing the taxpayers to cover the decision to force this issue instead of having appropriately planned for the best outcome? You guys, once you said, yes, we'll put it on the ballot and vote, then you pulled that back at the last minute. This is not future forecasting. This is throwing our money down the garbage drain as you tell the community, we need to do this because we need our money, but let me spend almost $25,000, give me a budget to spend without confirmation of where we're going. That doesn't make any sense. And even in this example of emails that you're reading from Tiffany, these questions came before the Fair Board said we don't want it. So if you think that you get the grant, let's just assume you get the grant and you'll notice this. How do you force the Fairground to actually manage your campground? Because it's the Fair Board that would have to do that. I mean, there's no plan other than to spend the taxpayer money. So can you answer directly? You have no confirmation. There's more than enough evidence to say the extension isn't going to happen.
Well, unless I'm mistaken, unless that Fair Board responds to our request, I believe that we have the ability to remove that Fair Board and appoint a new one. So that option is out there.
We remove people.
So you are a department that are answers to the commissioners, but won't answer to them. That is grounds for removal. So I suggest, whether they agree or not, that they respond. Dave Bowman, you're lit up there.
But I'm still speaking and we haven't made the public comment.
No, you're not.
No, I am still speaking. How is it reasonable that we can expect that members of our community are going to want to sit on volunteer boards to interact with? Basically what you're saying is, unless everybody that serves on a committee or a board, if they don't agree with your perspective, then you are going to say, we're going to vote the majority to change you out for the people I want to see. I've asked very clear, objective, non-accusatory questions that the public deserve an answer to. And your answer is to trash the whole Fair Board because they won't agree, giving them 5 business days to answer you.
No,
you guys consistently exercise.
She is a master at manipulation and turning things around. What I said is they have a responsibility to answer to the Board of Commissioners.
You know,
that is an absolute.
You don't need to yell at me.
If they don't do that, we have the ability to remove them and get a board that will respond. I'm not asking them to agree. I'm asking them to come to the
Why are
to
you
the
directing your
table.
comments at me?
How
I
many
didn't say any
days,
of
how
this.
many days did we give the board
You're
to
handy.
respond? You can't just go back and forth. How many days did we give 7 independent people to respond to when they could collectively have a meeting with this board? Is it 5 business days? How many days did we give them?
I believe it was a couple of weeks, but I'm waiting until I can respond.
We don't even know, but we're going to disparage a whole group of people for not even knowing when somebody else sent an email. That's not being respectful of the community. And I promise you, I don't need to sit here and manipulate anything because it is very demonstrative on this board. So in as much as there's an obligation for the public to be respectful to you or you'll stop this meeting, you will be respectful of me. Because I am an elected official and I don't disrespect you. I ask you the questions that you don't want to answer, and I'm
I
not
answered them.
ashamed.
You don't like
No,
the
you
answer.
actually don't answer. You repeatedly don't answer, and then you raise your voice and you're disrespectful to the community.
Okay,
What
well,
is the
respect
answer?
goes 2 ways, and I'm the chairman of this meeting, so we will move on to public comment.
You can move on all you want to, but you can stop the meeting and Asia can stop talking, or I can sit here and hold court. But
No,
you're
you
not
can't.
going to make
No, you
me be
can't.
quiet.
It
I
is
can't.
11:25,
There you
and we
go.
will recess this meeting, and we will come back to,
Exactly the same thing, and
To
you won't make it
executive
to a
session.
vote. Go to executive session.
well, actually, it will go to vote. I call it to a vote right now.
Yep.
Roll call vote.
Yes.
No, and I find that this decision is a grave disrespect and disregard to the community at whole. There is no evidence presented that this is a good use of taxpayer money. My first one was up.
Yes, motion passes. We are now in recess at 11:26 for 5 minutes. We'll come back in 5 minutes for executive sessions.